All right, guys, welcome back to Nightly Encounters. This is episode 2, and I'm super excited. We have a special guest here today, and her name is Amanda Smith, and she has a very awesome story for us today. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Amanda.
Hey guys, so my name is Amanda. I am married to my husband James. I have 3 kids. I'm 30 years old. I'm in the Army as a chaplain assistant. I grew up in Michigan. I lived in Washington for a while. I lived in Germany, and I currently live in Texas.
So you lived in pretty creepy places then, huh? So you got Washington, Germany, Michigan, and all of those other places, huh?
Yeah, I think the creepiest was probably Germany, but I saw some spooky stuff in Michigan, and Washington was kind of like interesting. But yeah, I think Germany was like the creepiest place, even though Michigan has some good stories too.
Wow, that's so cool. So, I know we're really just gonna jump into it because she actually has a lot to say.
Yeah.
She sent me an email and I printed out the email, right, and it came out to be like 5 pages long.
I didn't
So
realize it was that long. So. Yeah.
So I'm deciding, I'm not gonna read you guys 5 pages. I thought let's just bring Amanda on because she could explain it a lot better anyways. And you guys would probably get really bored if I read 5 pages. So
Yeah.
all right, so Amanda, so let's say okay, where go ahead. Go start it off then.
Where do I begin? Kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So I guess I can start from if I start from the very beginning, forgive me if I get back and forth because my recollection of things I tend to rabbit trail and I tend to bounce back and forth. So please forgive me for this, but it all makes sense in the end. So it started like really super, super young. My mom, I grew up in a trailer, right? So I remember being in this trailer. I remember going to sleep at night. Like I was like super little, and I remember like waking up and like seeing like lights and feeling like there was something around me. And I didn't know that that specific house was haunted until my mom told me later on after my great grandma died that there would be things that moved in the house and stuff like that. So I was like 2 or 3 or something like where I was just barely remembering stuff, but I remember the feeling of somebody there in the room or seeing stuff.
Yeah.
So that was like my first recollection of things. Um, I didn't really start to experience things until my grandma died. I think I was like either like first or second grade. And I remember the day my mom came home when my grandma died. My grandma died of cervical cancer. She had a pretty bad death because my biological father was a drug addict, so he would like take the morphine out of my grandma's IV and replace it with water. And so I know she had a painful death, and so I don't know if that like correlates with what I saw, but I remember seeing her in mirrors throughout my upbringing or anything that reflected like windows or anything like that. I'd see her face and I'd see her like thin blackish gray hair and like this pearl necklace and this like purple like velvet dress with buttons that went up it. And she'd like it depend on the time that I saw her, but like she would like press against the glass or she'd look like she was screaming or she'd look sad or something like that. So it always freaked me out because like I never knew when it would happen, but it would happen. And I'm like, when it happened, obviously it was like, oh my gosh, like what am I gonna do?
So, in your perspective, though, did you think she was a creepy looking lady when you did see her, or
Oh,
was like overall, or was she, a nice, sweet looking lady?
she looked how I remembered her, but she looked like scared. Or
Okay.
she would look like not mad, but like kind of like I don't think she was trying to scare me, but she scared me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there was times that like when she would reach out, she had this like crazed look. I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's hard to explain if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's yeah, that definitely makes sense. Yeah, because I know that you're saying that. Um, yeah, because she had a lot of. How old was she then? Do you
Oh,
think?
she wasn't that old. Like she was probably in her late 40s or early 50s when she died.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, so she wasn't that old. Like, and so I always saw her. I even saw her up to the point of like I was with my ex-husband, and this is when we were just dating, and we were playing hide and seek in his house, and I hadn't seen her in so long. Um, but we were like playing hide and seek, and I was like, it was in the dark. It was at night, and I had a flashlight, and I was trying to find John. That's his name, and shined a light on a mirror that was in the like living area, and she was there, and I freaked out and screamed for him, and then he ran in and turned on all the lights and stuff like that. Obviously, he didn't see her, but like I saw her, and I was like, I have not seen her in like years. And like, and he didn't really know about that until that moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really interesting. Yeah,
Jeez.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so after you seen her in like your mirror and all that stuff, you said something about your brothers seeing her, or was that
Oh,
is that
so
a
or
different?
it's a different thing. So my brothers, it's not that they saw her. So growing up, I so my mom really like dabbled in, I wouldn't say the like the dark arts, but she was really interested in the paranormal. That's what I was thinking. So she was super interested in the paranormal, and we always used to watch ghost shows, and like she would tell me her stories because she grew up with stories. She saw my great grandmother in that first trailer that I was talking about. A lot of the stuff she believed it was my great grandma that was moving things or doing whatever in that house. So um, I took an interest in a Ouija board, and I wanted one so bad, but I never got one. And I only saw it just because like one show I saw that there was such a thing as a Ouija board. I didn't know much about it until then. And then my friend coincidentally brought one over that he bought from a store. So we started playing it in the backyard that I was showing you, and we played it in a tree house, and um I started to get addicted to it. It was weird. Like in and at first I didn't believe that. I thought it was just like my friend just being like, "Oh, like, huh," like just joking with me,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And then um I started answering questions that I never told him. I don't remember the questions, and I know that sounds kind of bad, but I remember the feeling that I had was like it scared me, but I was intrigued. So I kept playing with him whenever I could, whenever he'd come over. And he didn't come over very often because he was kind of a weird kid. But he would come over, he'd bring his Ouija board, and we'd sit at the picnic table in my backyard or in my tree house, and we'd just play it. And I would ask questions, and I really felt like maybe it was my grandma, but I didn't know. So then there was one night I specifically remember, and I know this sounds stupid, but I made my own Ouija board out of like paper and some ghetto plastic that I just like cut. And I sat in my room, and I remember sitting there trying to like empty my mind and let whatever was there in, and it moved. And I'm very logical, and I try to like dismiss things. So maybe it was my subconscious that was moving it, but it moved when it was just me. And I don't think that's a normal thing. So then to add on to that, my brothers, like what you mentioned in the story, um, they saw, so the way my house is, like there's a stairs, right? And they were at the bottom of the stairs, and they saw a woman walking from my bathroom, which is on one side of my house, and they saw her walk towards my room, which is parallel to my bathroom. Like literally, you walk from my bathroom to my bedroom just if you go straight.
This is the house in Michigan, correct?
Yes, this
Okay.
is the house in Michigan, the one I grew up in. I grew up in a couple, or I didn't grow up in. I moved from house to house, but I primarily grew up in the house in Michigan, in Durand, Michigan. It was kind of like rundown house. It's been there for a while, kind of thing, which
Okay.
is like most houses in Michigan. They've been there for a while. So my brothers were like, "Hey, did you just go into your room?" And I wasn't there. Like I was in a different room. And I answered them, and I was like, "No, I'm right here." And they were like freaked out. Like they were like, "We literally just saw a woman walk in your room. We thought it was you." And it wasn't.
I would say, hell no.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. So there was stuff like that happening. I always kind of felt weird in that house, especially the basement, but like that house just like didn't it just didn't sit well. But
Yeah.
it's not like a whole bunch of stuff happened. It was mainly just me on the Ouija board. I just remember like me playing on that a lot and feeling a connection with it, and I didn't want to let that go. So that correlates to Washington, right? So when I first moved to Washington, brought one over. So and it was I remember it was a stupid like glow in the dark one, and I was like, "Oh, can we get it?" And it wasn't very much money, so we bought it, and I brought it home, and I was so excited because I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna summon some stuff up." And then we were in the Washington house, and nothing happened, and it was like I was so disappointed, right? So we kept trying to play it in that stupid little apartment in Washington. Nothing happened, right? So we just put it to the side, and then eventually we moved to Germany.
Yeah.
And so we went to Germany, and we didn't really play on it then. We put it in our guest room, and we kind of forgot about it. Um, and then like my ex-husband deployed, and when we went to Germany, nothing really happened until
What was I'm sorry, what was the time frame between this?
all right. So we bought the Ouija board either in 2007 or 2008,
Okay.
and then we moved to Germany in 2009.
Gotcha. Okay.
All right. So, and then my ex-husband deployed at the end of 2009, and then he was there through 2010. So it was like November of 2009, I'm pretty sure, and then he came back November of 2010.
Okay.
So, he deployed, right? So he deployed November, um, and we had a bunch of friends over and stuff like that. Like I said, we kept the Ouija board in our guest room. And I remember the first incident I had in Germany was I was on the phone with my friend Hannah, and I was in the middle of my living room on the phone, and I remember smelling like a sulfur smell, and I was like, "What the heck is going on?"
No.
Yeah, right. I was like, "What the heck is this?" So, and I told her I was like, dude, I smell something weird. It smells like sulfur. And we just kind of dismissed it because I was like, of course, I'm going to smell something weird when my husband deploys, right? So as we go on throughout the year, before my friend, so like just a little backstory again, because my ex husband deployed to Iraq, my friend wanted to come out and stay with me as long as she could, which was like 4 months. And she was going to help me with the sitter and all that stuff because I had 2 kids at that time. And yeah, so she was just helping me out and keeping me company so I wasn't alone because most of the spouses left back home and I was the only one in my building. Literally, all the spouses left because it was a very small base. Excuse me. And so a very small base. So they're all in the same unit. So everybody went home when everybody deployed. So it was literally just me in my building. And so she was with me, and we didn't start, like I had some happenings, like I had the TV turn off, turn off and on, like my alarm clock was weird, but I wasn't too alarmed by it. I was like, whatever, it's just like power, or I'm just smelling stuff because I was thinking my subconscious or whatever, right? So she came, and that and stuff started picking up when she came. So I don't know if something was connected to her, but I really do think it was the Ouija board, because after she came, it was like a month or so after she came. I mean, we had been experiencing like stuff that I was dealing with before, but in a higher extreme. Like the TV would turn off, the alarm clock would like do weird stuff, like a movie. Like it would just like the numbers would just change. I had a dog, I had a boxer, and it would go at the end of my hallway, and it would stare down the end of my hallway and growl. My kids would be in their room, and I'd walk by, and they would be waving and saying hi to nothing. There'd be nothing there, and they're like, and Ian, that's my oldest son, was like, hi. And I was just like, what the heck, you know? And there was even a time, like, I remember like, the dresser in my son's room was placed in a corner. So, like, you have a square, right? And it's in the corner. So it's really hard for a 2-year-old, and this was a heavy dresser, to like push it over and fling the doors out. But this whole dresser was over and the drawers were flung out, and it was nuts. Like I was starting to get freaked out. And I remember when she came, she was like, "Your house is weird." And her alarm clock was doing the same things. Like she said in the bathroom, we had a cabinet in the bathroom, and she said she could hear knocking, or like somebody was opening and closing the closet like a lot.
Ugh.
Yeah, right. And she just didn't like it. She's like, it doesn't sit well with me. So I remember one night we were sitting on the couch, and I have like an L-shaped couch. It was like a sectional thing, right? And we're watching TV, and we're both on our computers watching TV. And all of a sudden I hear this crash. And my youngest daughter, she was under a year old, Lena, started screaming and crying. And I got up and I ran down the hallway and went to her room. And her bassinet, like this is a metal and wood bassinet, looked like somebody had grabbed each of the sides and pushed down. And she was outside of the bassinet on the floor, swaddled, screaming. And the whole bassinet was just ruined. Like it was just like a wreck. And I was like, what the hell just happened? I grabbed my baby, I ran to the living room, and I told Susie, and I was like freaking out, and I didn't fix the bassinet, I just threw it away. It was destroyed. And I don't know how that could have happened. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was crazy. So that was one of the things, like, I mean, obviously besides the tapping on the doors, my dog freaking out, my lights going on and off, Susie just telling me like weird feelings and stuff was happening. I know it's very vague, but I don't remember everything that she was describing to me. But then there was this one night, like, because I'm interested in the paranormal. So I was like, you know what? I've heard of automatic writing. I think I'm going to do it. I just want to see what happens. So automatic writing, I think, if I remember correctly, is typically done on paper. But I was like, I'm going to do it in my laptop. And I had a laptop mini. So that was when they first came out. They were like all the rage. It was like $200, $200 or $300. So it was cheap. So I bought it.
So do you want to tell us what exactly is automatic writing then?
From what I understand, automatic writing is when you let an entity speak through you.
Okay.
Yeah, so like you clear your mind and you just let them speak, speak through you pretty much. I mean, it's nothing crazy.
And then you just write down what
they're saying.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
So I was like, I'm gonna do automatic writing on this laptop. And so I sat in my living room. My kids were asleep. The TV was off. I didn't have any music on. And I remember sitting in my living room. I had the laptop on my lap. And then I meditated for a second. And I just let everything out. And I was like, okay, whatever wants to speak, speak through me. And that's what I was thinking. I was just being open. And then I just started typing whatever I heard in my head. And I know that sounds psychotic. I know it does. But I heard something. It's been so long, I don't remember exactly what was said. Like, I used to have it saved on notes. My ex-husband saw it because I sent it to him. And Susie saw it because I showed her. And when I showed my ex-husband and Susie, which was the same night after I was complete, I remember my friend Susie was like, this does not sound anything like you would talk. Because I don't have very good grammar. I really don't. I don't punctuate. I don't do any of that crap.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really bad with that. And I showed her what was said, and she got scared. Like, she was literally like, what the heck, Amanda? Like, this is weird. This isn't you. And I was like, I'm just showing you what was said, right? And I sent it to my husband. He said the same thing. So then that same night, right after I showed her that, I was like, I bet you we could do the Ouija board, because we had tried to do the Ouija board before. It just never worked for some reason. And it was really aggravating because we had all this stuff going on, right? And we figured it would work, but it didn't.
Yeah.
So I was like, hey, let's do the Ouija board. I bet you it'll work this time. And I don't know why I said that. I just thought it would. And so we went and sat in my dining room, and I remember just putting my fingers on that pointer, and it's the same one I bought from Washington. All of this to say, by the way, I got to pause. See, this is me rabbit trailing. So I had a friend that right before my ex-husband deployed, she got on my Ouija board with her ex-husband, or no, not ex, sorry, with her husband in my guest room where I said I stored it at, and they both played on it trying to contact one of their family members, but it never worked. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to hit your mic. But it didn't work, and they said they never said goodbye because they didn't think it was real because it didn't work.
Yeah, and that's like really dangerous.
Yes.
To do.
Yeah. So I forgot to leave. I forgot I left that part out, but. I called her, but when all of this stuff was happening, and I asked her, I was like, "Hey, man, did you do anything in my room that was like weird?" Because I was literally trying to figure out what was going on. I forgot that I see, because this is me rabbit trailing. I forgot like there was a Frankenstein moan in there, like, and me and Susie laughed at it. Like, there was a lot of stuff that happened, right? And like so much that obviously I forget details, but like I remember calling her and being like, "Hey, what the heck, did you guys do anything?" Because I was trying to find an explanation, and she's like, "Yeah, me and my husband," which was Matt, like, we played on it, but it didn't do anything, so we just put it up. And I was like, "Did you say goodbye?" And she's like, "No." And I remember getting so mad because it was like, you're supposed to say goodbye if you play with the Ouija board, because that's just what I believe, right? So all of that going to the automatic writing and stuff like that, right? Because maybe that's why all of this craziness like came about. I was like, "Hey, I bet you this Ouija board will work. Let's try it." We're sitting at the dining room table. I put my fingers on it, and she put her fingers on the pointer. And then I forgot the question we asked, but it finally moved. And Susie was freaked out. She's like, "No, no, 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 no." And I know why she was saying that, because the feeling I got was like the same feeling I got before when I had the Ouija board working before. And it's just like this like tingly, weird feeling that just slowly goes from your hands up your arms. It's like really hard to describe. And she's like, "No, no, no, no." And it's moving. And I was like, "Okay, we'll say goodbye." And then I pushed it to goodbye. And I sat there kind of smug, feeling in a way like I wasn't scared for some reason. She was crying. She was terrified.
Because you weren't scared at all.
No. I don't know why.
What?
And then she was like, "You have an aura." Like, and she never mentioned anything about this kind of stuff before. And she's like, "You have an aura." And I was like, "Really?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's a white aura." And so we Googled it like later on, and come to find out it's just like you have a connection with the spirit, like a strong connection with the spirit, right? But she's like, "You have this aura." And I remember sitting there and saying, "So it's okay. You don't need to be scared. It's okay," you know? And I don't know why I said that, because after everything, after the automatic writing and all this stuff going on and like everything, I wasn't scared at all, you know? And that's weird to me, you know? So she eventually left because she could only be there for 4 months. We still had stuff going on, just their typical like lights turning on and off, you seeing stuff in the background, stuff being misplaced. I remember actually, so my ex-husband was deployed and we had Skype. So one time when I went to the grocery store, me and her, I like put my computer on so it could face the living room. And I just wanted him to watch. I don't know why. I just was like, "Hey, just watch the living room for me." And when I got back, he had hung up and I read the messages and he was like, babe, are you there? Babe, the computer's focusing on something and it's white and it's moving across the screen, but it's not focusing on it, but it's focused on it. Like, it's like a hazy focus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's walking across the screen. And then he said that something literally picked up the laptop and moved it and stuff like that. John said that.
That's
right?
So awesome.
Yeah. And so I was like, "What?" And then when I walked in, I remember like reading that, and then none of my windows were open, and I had this seashell thing that holds plants, and it looked like somebody took their hand and had a flat palm and like brushed the underside of it because it just like moved. And there was no wind. There was none of my windows were open or anything like that. And I was like, "What the heck is going on?" You know? And like, this is all in Germany.
Yeah.
So he saw that. He saw some other stuff, and his friend saw some other stuff. Like, he used to tattoo people, and he said while he was tattooing people, him and his client literally saw white, like, just like form and then disappear. like white shadowy or white misty thing just form and disappear.
And where was this? Was this in your like living room?
In the living room.
Living room?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's where I know it sounds ghetto, but like that's where he would typically do it at. Yeah. So yeah, like all that stuff happened. And what I think, like, and I know this sounds crazy because like what my ex-husband and my friend saw was after my friend broke the Ouija board. So I had a friend come in at like right before my husband got back. She heard everything that was happening, and I explained to her everything, and like I wasn't sleeping. I had insomnia. I legit was up until 8 o'clock in the morning. Like it was really bad. So my friend, I was like telling her about it. She actually came over and excuse me, she was like, so explain to me. I explained to her, and she was like, go get your Ouija board. And I was like, okay, because I thought she wanted to see it. And I gave it to her, and she kneed it and crushed and like ripped it in half. And as soon as she ripped it in half, I started like hysterically crying, and I didn't know why. And I before I wanted to get rid of the Ouija board, my ex-husband told me to get rid of the Ouija board, but I just didn't want to. So like all of these ghost stuff happening, like that was in the back of my mind was this Ouija board was
So you think something was attached to you to pretty much hold on to or try to get into like the paranormal / world that you
maybe, yeah. Like
think so?
yeah, because
Okay.
like there was literally times I Googled like how to cleanse my house, how to like how to make holy oil, how to make holy water without like a priest or whatever, you know, because like I was a dumb military spouse. I didn't know I had access to the chapels at that time. So like I was Googling this stuff, trying to figure out what can I do. Like I pray and it doesn't go away. So what else can I do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when she came and knead it, and then she kept ripping it, and I just started crying, and she's like, that's why I did it, you know? And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And I'm like crying. I'm literally crying because she ripped my Ouija board apart. Jeez. So I think part of me was attached to it in a way. It was really weird. I haven't played on a Ouija board since because I feel like part of that the Ouija board was part of the reason why it was going on. And for the record, like the housing that I stayed in was an Ansbach or not Barton Barracks. It was in Ansbach, and I forgot the name of the barracks now because I can name off Stork Barracks, Barton Barracks. I think it was across the street from Barton Barracks. If any of you guys want to Google it, look at Barton Barracks on the maps, and it was the one literally across the street from Barton Barracks. And that supposed spot was not a concentration camp, but a containment camp for Jews back in the World Wars. Yeah. So I found that out while all this stuff was going on or whatever. So she destroyed the Ouija board. Anyways, she destroyed it, and it was crazy, and stuff started to go away, but there were still minor things that was happening, like the stuff that I told you that my ex-husband and his friends would see. So we moved away from there. It was such a blessing to move away from there. Like I was so relieved. And we went to Washington, and stuff got better. There were still negative energies and stuff around. I didn't have a Ouija board in there, but I could feel people bringing in negativity and like weird stuff happening. I don't remember exactly what it was because during that time I was like going through pregnancy and all this stuff, but I just remember like I had to go through the house with sage. I used Ting Sha bells, which break up negative energy. I prayed, all this stuff, or what have you. And yeah, it just like, after Washington State, I haven't really felt any craziness until I went to the Emily Morgan. So yeah, that's kind of it. I hope that explains it. You know, if you have any questions, let me know.
Yeah. So I know in the story you also talked about you had sleep paralysis.
I completely forgot about the sleep paralysis. Holy crap. All right, that was in Michigan. I had some sleep paralysis in Washington too, actually. Yes, you're right. So the first time I had sleep paralysis, I completely missed the haunted house that I went through when I was a teenager. So with my ex-husband and I, go ahead.
No. Yeah, so let's go back to so this is all before Germany, right? What you're about to tell us, right? Okay,
Yes.
so I think that's just crazy. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying you're crazy, but I'm just
No,
saying
you're good.
like the whole wow, it's intense. So
Yeah.
let's go back to what you have to go for.
All right, so in Michigan, this is when my ex-husband John and I were teenagers, and so this was in Rochester, Michigan, and this house, like I didn't know this house was like stupid haunted until I went there, and me, my friend Sean, and then Trisha, his girlfriend, and John and I all went there. Sean's dad dropped us off, and we get there, and their friend Courtney, who is like a stupid, like crazy weed smoker, like was like, "Hey man, like come hang out." So we went to hang out because apparently she was super cool, right? And then when we get there, she's like, "Yeah, like the house is haunted." Sean and John knew about it, but didn't bother to tell me and Trisha at all. So I didn't find out till I got there, until she told us, till they're like, "Oh yeah, you know." So the first night I get there, I walk into the upstairs. Like the whole house just feels weird. It's old as heck. I don't know why it's haunted. They just told me it was. It's old. I just didn't like the feeling I got. I went upstairs in the bathroom and it felt like something grabbed my ankle in the shower while I was trying to shave my legs, and it was just like odd. But I was just like, "Oh, that's just me being paranoid because they said it's haunted, right?" So then I'm in my friend's room, and I was sitting next to Trisha, Sean, and then John and Courtney, the person that owned the house, or like you know what I mean by own the house. Yeah, yeah, her mom owned it. We're sitting on the off the bed. We're on the bed, and then like I felt this like crazy tingly feeling, like kind of how I had with the Ouija board, like come over my whole body. And it was like this warm, tingly, like crazy, like it's undescribable. And I felt my eyes roll back into my head. And I was like shaking. And I remember them like calling out my name. And then I just like kind of snapped out of it. And they're like, "What the heck?" And I really felt like something like overcame me, right? Like it was just weird. And they had told me that there has been multiple times where like people come in there, like stuff would move around, like all this weird stuff. But they said the entity that they felt was in there was really bad. And I don't know if it was like, I don't know what it was. I mean, I heard stories and stuff, but like it just, like, I didn't know a lot of history with it or whatever. So I remember we stayed there for like maybe like 5 days because it was over Thanksgiving. I don't remember exactly the year. I think it was like maybe 2006. So this is super early. Like this is when me and my ex-husband were like dating. So we uh we stayed there over the Thanksgiving break, and I remember sleeping in the hallway because I'm ghetto like that. And I was with my ex-husband, and I was spooning him. And I know that doesn't make a lot of sense to say that, but whatever. So I was spooning him, and I fell asleep. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, like I wake up, and I look down the hallway and I feel paralyzed. So this is where I'm like, I try to think logically. I honestly do. So I'm like, maybe this was sleep paralysis, but I felt paralyzed and I looked down the hallway and there was this like lanky freaking creature, like with his like eyes, like I don't know how to describe. They weren't like yellow or crazy, or they were just like looking at me. And and it had like these long appendages, I think that's the word for it. And like it just was like lanky and skinny, and it was like coming at me. I was freaking out, and I was trying to tap him with my thumb because that was the only thing I could move.
Yeah.
And obviously he's like dead asleep, so he's not going to feel my thumb. And I'm freaking out because I can't move. And then all of a sudden I like can snap out of like my paralysis, but it was still there. I shake John, and then we run down the stairs because where we were sleeping at in the hallway was like the stairs, and then like the hallway was like intersecting it like perfectly with the stairs. The stairs was perfectly aligned with the middle, and we were just sleeping in the hallway. I know this sounds really ghetto, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
And so we ran down the stairs, and my friend's mom was sitting at the table smoking a cigarette, and we told them what was going on, and they told me like all these stories about like like clowns appearing out of nowhere, like all this craziness, right? And I was like, oh man, this is what happened, you know. So obviously we still kept having things happen, you know, like um my friends would see apparitions, like stuff would be moved. It was a really uneasy feeling. So that's kind of like what happened in that house with him and me having like seeing that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I know I bounce back and forth with a lot of things, but it's easy to forget when it's been so long.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
and especially since there's been so much going on. I get
yeah,
that too. So,
yeah.
wow.